There are three ways to analyze artworks. One, art as physical objects. Two, art as experience, which is also known as formal analysis. And three, art as cultural artifacts, which is also known as contextual analysis. Now, let's take a look at this painting here by 17th century Dutch artist Pieter de Hooch and see how the three different ways of analysis are used. First, analyzing art as physical objects. This deals with the material of the artwork. By doing so, it helps with identification and conservation. Learning to identify materials and the process and the techniques specific to the medium. It gives art historians insight to the artwork. In this painting, we can see that it is oil on canvas. Examining it further, we'll see that the pigment used to make paint here were derived from natural minerals, which create a greater likelihood that the painting was made before the modern era, before the invention of manufactured chemicals to be used as pigment. Also, knowing that it was painted on canvas, the type of canvas can also give art historians a clue of its location, where it was made. Next, we have formal analysis. This is looking at art as visual experience. Once art historians sensitize their eyes to analyze formally, they will learn to identify styles of different periods and of different artists. Without knowing the background, the artist, or the meaning, we can see the sublime quality of the painting, the part that transcends interpretation. This part is fundamental in creating art as well as looking at art. It's how artists themselves think through creation. Yet, often students find this part to be most challenging, but it's simply describing what you see and analyze how they contribute to the overall effects of the artwork. If this sounds intimidating for someone who is new to art, think of it this way. Have you ever walked into a room, a store, or someone's house and thought to yourself, wow, I really like it, and I wish I can kind of have the same feeling in my room. And then you start looking, analyzing, oh, the walls are yellow, therefore it feels cheerful. The ceiling is high. That makes the furniture look not as overwhelming and feels calmer. The carpet looks soft, therefore inviting. Well, what you're doing is some kind of formal analysis. You're talking about color, proportion, and texture. Of course, we're not doing formal analysis on an interior. We're doing formal analysis on artwork. Therefore, we'll dive into it a little bit deeper. But the starting point is not too different than when you're analyzing a room you like or someone's fashion style you admire. We will use elements such as lines, shapes, colors, light and dark, etc. And we'll also talk about principles such as repetitions, unity, etc. So for this painting, when we do a formal analysis, we will not care about the subject matter. We will not care about what this painting is about or what the thing is. We'll look at it and experience it formally through elements and principles. Shapes we see. Circle up here, or more an oval shape. Rectangle right here. And also the individual bricks, as well as the patterns made by the grouping of bricks. Now, besides these shapes that are geometric, basically shapes that you can name. We also see more organic shapes, such as the plant right here on the upper right-hand corner. For space, we see the illusionistic space from the use of perspective, such as the ground right here, and also through the doorway right here, we get a sense of extension of space. Now, for principles, we notice rhythm, which is being created by repetition of shapes, such as the repeating rectangles we talked about earlier. But also the repeating arcs. You see right here, the kind of semicircle being repeated right over here. Now that creates a nice rhythm because even though they're similar shapes, but they're different size, therefore they're not quite as monotonous, and which creates a sense of rhythm. For balance, we see that it is set up asymmetrically with figures and shapes of different sizes and grouping on the right-hand side versus the left-hand side here. That asymmetry is also reinforced by having more red used on the left side. You can see it on her skirt and also on the window frame right here. Now, on the right-hand side, we see instead of red, we see yellow and we see blue. So that creates an asymmetrical feeling, as well as the figures here are larger and the singular figure here is smaller. Now, additionally, we also see a spiral movement starting from up here with the taller part of the building, and it kind of draws our eye downwards, horizontally, and then upwards, and spiraling, pointing right towards here, where the opening and the figure here is. So it creates a spiral movement. Once you have learned to see these things, you will learn about the elements and principles a little bit more in this module. And you'll be able to make formal analysis without knowing what the painting means or who the artist is or other aspects of the work. You'll be able to appreciate art and see it as the way artists see them. Doing formal analysis is basically describing what you're seeing in a sensitive way. And you can further analyze how these elements and principles contribute to the feeling of the work. For example, while the set of the composition is asymmetrical, which we talk about it a little bit, and however, because the size and the shapes of the different colors, they actually contribute to a sense of calmness and also a sense of balance. Finally, let's get to the third analysis, which is contextual analysis, the studying artwork as cultural artifact. This is probably what people most often associate with art history. It is the historical, the cultural, the social background, namely the big environment, the context of the time the artwork was created, as well as the subject matter, the meaning, and the interpretation of artwork, which could include symbolism, iconography of the time, or the artist's own intent. So, for art historians, art does not exist in vacuums. It is also a product of its time. Now, looking at this painting, we know that it was painted in Netherlands of 1600s. That means it was after the Reformation, after Netherlands split away from Catholic Church, after the iconoclasm of Reformation, meaning rejecting Christianity being represented in images. So, unlike Italian painting of the same time, we're seeing fewer religious images in Dutch art, as the example we're seeing here. The painting depicts daily domestic life of people, specifically of women in the city Delft, and this is a scene of the contemporary life of the time. So this is something that concerns art historians. And artists, of course, while they're creating it, they don't necessarily think about, oh, I'm in the time after Reformation, or I'm in the time that all of these things happen. They're just living in the time. But when art historians looking at artwork, they do take that into consideration. Now, while you may be asked to do specific type of analysis in art history classes as exercises, but bear in mind, these three types of analysis are not meant to be used separately all the time. Rather, art historians consider all of them when studying artworks.